Today we're going to talk through the Reforged Kings Canyon map update, and these are the patch notes so you get to see exactly what's changing on Kings Canyon. Let's start by looking at the overall map for Kings Canyon, and you can see the main part of the map is this bit down here that's been changed, so essentially the bit between Octane's Gauntlet and Market. You can see it's a massive change because before there wasn't really a massive connection between Octane's Gauntlet and what used to be Salvage, but now it's all connected, so it opens up a lot more space in this area of the map. So that should definitely help Kings Canyon feel a lot bigger. So as I said, the first thing is the return of Skulltown. So if you look at this image before, we had Salvage sort of towards the back, and then we had the skull which was being lifted out of the sea. And what we have after is the return of Skulltown. And you can see here the new POI is called Relic. So it's not going to be called Salvage anymore, and it won't go back to being called Skulltown. It's going to be called Relic. Now obviously it's a little bit smaller than it used to be when it was Skulltown, but clearly it's a lot bigger than it was when it was just Salvage, which should definitely be a good thing. You've got the classic Skulltown skull along with the Skulltown buildings, but I'm pretty sure it's still going to be a hot drop area. Oh, by the way, before I move on, you do also have these outside areas for Skulltown which do look quite cool, and they could have some really cool close quarters combat. If we look at the big map again, you can see what I'm talking about in these outside areas here. Moving on, the next big change is with Cage, Hillside and Relay. Obviously Cage is quite a big change. It used to be one of those points of interest where you could just go into Cage and kind of camp up the top here, but now they've changed that. It's a lot more open, so you can still get up there and get some good height advantage, but it's definitely a lot more open, so you're not going to be as safe just camping up there. And they should definitely create some more open plays, not just within Cage but also from around Cage, because you'll have greater visibility inside. Also remember this point of interest, this is Hillside, it's just across from Containment. You used to have these buildings here which actually were fairly popular to land at, and it did also mean you got lots of third parties here, because if you're rotating through here you'd often kind of stop here for a little bit and do a lot of looting. But because it's in the middle of essentially the map, you would often get third partied here quite quickly. But now take a look how they've changed it. It's a lot more open, you don't have buildings, and yes, you still got some loot, but actually this is going to be more of an area where you pass through a lot quicker now, rather than an area where you kind of stop to loot like it was before. Now here's a fun little change for Broken Relay. Obviously Relay in the old days used to be another fun place to land, but with Broken Relay they kind of removed some of the fun of landing here. But the good news is for season 14, they've brought back a lot of the fun areas of Broken Relay. Just be careful not to fall off it. And I mentioned they've modified some areas in between the points of interest. These are the kind of modifications they've made, and I'll try and explain what that means for your gameplay. So this is the first area. This is the one where there's normally a respawn point here, you've got some loot bins, and this is essentially if you're traveling up the map. And what they've done is they've removed one of the vertical runways, so you now only have one section you can go up through. There are only two ways through, so you can definitely still get stuck here, but at least it's reducing the nature of gameplay around this kind of confined and tricky area. Again, creating another section of the map where instead of camping here or spending time here, you're just going to be pushing. And another rotation you can see is up by Cage. Again, this is how it looked before. If you remember, you'd have this quite narrow runway to get to Cage from kind of Hillside and farm area. And if you ran off left, there was a little way here. But what they've done is they've opened it up so much more now. So this is going to be a lot more of an open area. It's going to be less of a tight tunnel to box people in, and hopefully a lot freer to get through to Market or through down to Cage or all the way up to Watchtower. So it's going to be a lot more open. Some more interesting things they've got are a loot refresh. So again, this should help Kings Canyon feel a lot more open, but also with a lot more content within the map. Another thing you can see they've changed is the skybox and the lighting. So check out this older view of the map and have a look at what it looks like now. You can see it's so much brighter and vibrant, and it just feels more alive and more realistic. So that's kind of it. There are a few additional changes they mentioned, and I'll put a link to this blog down below so you can go and check out these patch notes for the map changes. But they're kind of things like they've added in new zip lines. Probably the most interesting bit for you are the removal of 3 charge towers at Capacitor, and also the removal of 5 jump towers around the map in areas that they say would benefit from slower rotations, which is not necessarily a bad thing because again, it's just going to slow down teams a little bit, and that should hopefully help reduce third partying. So you can see some good changes here coming for Kings Canyon in Apex Legends Season 14. Keep a lookout for my video on the full patch notes when they're released, and you'll get to find out about all of the legend and weapon nerfs and buffs. For now though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll catch you later.